Well, now that I got the plane outside, out of the hangar, it looks like our warm, hot, dry weather has dissipated, has changed. We're getting into a wet weather pattern, or a wetter weather pattern now. Yesterday was a nice day, it was warm, and I got out here and I washed the airplane down, got it cleaned up. But now it's getting showery, so I'm not sure how much I can get done. I've got some thin paint in places on the struts and on the floats, in places I've cleaned up corrosion and stuff like that. And I put some zinc chromate primer on some places that are showing through. I went and bought some aluminum paint, and I want to paint those places and stuff and get them cleaned up so they look better. I also got a bunch of creosote on there. I thought I could get the creosote off with some paint thinner, but it won't come off with paint thinner, so probably going to have to try some gasoline or something. I've also got some of these patches, like here and here, of anti-skid. Some of that stuff was getting pretty loose and coming off, so I've got some new anti-skid patches to cut and put on there, but I've got to see if I can get the glue off there that was holding that on. So I washed the floats down pretty good yesterday with soap and water after I got done with the rest of the airplane, but I'm going to wipe it down with some paint thinner, get some of the stuff off that I couldn't get off with soap and water. And then I got some lacquer thinner. I'm going to try to clean up the contact cement or adhesive that was holding those anti-skid pieces down. I've also got some new lines, handling lines. I've got these lines on the bow cleats of the floats, and they're still good, but the end of it here that I had turned back is frayed out, because these things sit on the float and run free when we're flying, so this kind of whips here on the end, and so the splices wear out here. I need these lines on here to hang on to the airplane when I push it back in the water off of the ramp, to hold it, to keep it from drifting off once it goes in the water. Also use it when we have to nose in someplace. Sometimes we get a steep bank or a dock that has pilings on it or something like that, where we've got to come straight in on the nose or come up to a boat, and so these are used to handle lines there when we do something like that. And I've got a line back here, the same thing. It's getting wore out here on the end of it, frayed out, and this is for tying up to a dock or something when we come alongside of a dock, or to hold the airplane when we come alongside of something. So I've got new ropes to put on those. Anyway, it's not too bad of a day today. It's been showering, just enough rain to ruin painting. We'll see if we get a break between showers and they can get a little painting done and get it flashed off before rain comes along. But I'm going to work on getting that glue cleaned up first, and then we can splice those lines on there. Well, I'll keep doing that. I got most of the adhesive off of this side of where I'm going to put the anti-skid patches, and I'm working on getting the creosote off of there. It's coming off with the lacquer thinner. I was afraid it was going to take off all the paint, because the paint is just lacquer, and it is taking it down some, but not as bad as I was afraid. So I just keep working on that while the sun's out here nice, and we'll clean these floats up a little bit more and pour a little paint on them, I guess. Well, it didn't get rained on. It started to sprinkle once, but it held off. The wind blew like heck. Pretty good. In fact, I had taken the straps off there, the tie-down straps, to work on those floats and clean them up a little bit. I put them back on there for a while. I wasn't sure what the wind was going to do. I don't know. You can see the clouds are racing by pretty good now. Starting to blow again. So I'm working on the floats and the struts, the spreader bars and the struts here now. I took off some ratty old anti-skid material that was on here and cleaned those areas up. And I got all of that creosote all cleaned up. Of course, I used lacquer cleaner for that, and that took a lot of the paint off, although the paint was pretty thin anyway. So I got some Krylon paint, and I painted the floats and most of the spreader bars there. At least I got as much as I could. I used up 4 cans of paint and just finished up on them, and anyway, they look a lot better than they did. Still look like a rattle can job, but they've looked better than they did. So I'd had some spots on there where the bare aluminum was. I'd sprayed some zinc chromate primer on them, and then I had some spots here that I'd cleaned up corrosion, like around this hatch cover here. Some of those had had corrosion in them before, and I cleaned those up and had them sprayed with zinc chromate primer, and they looked like hell, but I couldn't get any aluminum paint here in town anywhere, and it was a couple of years before they got some. Here the other day I got 4 cans of it, and that's all they had. But that was just enough. So then I got some fresh anti-skid tape pad and put down on here. So that'll be pretty nice. I probably should have went ahead and took the rest of those old pads off there and put new on all of them, but I was being kind of parsimonious. Some of them didn't look quite so bad until after I got the new ones on there. But anyway, I wound up scrubbing the floats down a couple times. I was going over them with the lacquer thinner, cleaning all of the old creosote off of them, and then I realized that they were still dirty, even though I washed them with some soap and water yesterday. It was basically pretty much the leavings of what was in the pot, and it was kind of dirty anyway. I didn't do as good a job on it, so I mixed up some more soap and water, took a little scrub brush and went over the floats and the spreader bars and the strut. Then I wiped them all down with some Prep-Sol and rattle canned the heck out of them. Anyway, we got all new anti-skid on here. There'll be no excuse for falling off of here now. That piece that was up there was marginal. It was getting ratty around the edges and stuff. It still worked, but I went ahead and took it off and put a new piece on anyway. This new stuff here is really abrasive. It's just like sandpaper. So I put that on there on that step, and then on the steps, the fueling steps up there, I put a little bit on each one of those. Those still don't look as good as they would have if they'd have been sprayed with a spray gun, but they look like a rattle gun sprayed them, but they look better than they did. Well, I'm going to cut the old lines off, and the new lines that I got are a little bit bigger. These are 5/16, and I got 3/8 inch line. This line was just a little bit small for handling. It's plenty strong enough, but it's just too small in your hand. And I suppose probably the first thing I should do, what are you doing down there, cat? Is sharpen my knife. I've been meaning to do that for quite a while. There we go. But I've been procrastinating on it, so anyway. There we go. Come on. There we go. Come on. There you go. You want to play? Huh? You want to play with that? Huh? You want to play with that? All right, there you go. Yeah, get it. Get it. Get it. Get it. Yeah, there you go. Get it. All right. You get it. Huh? You get it. Huh? There you go. Alright, now this end here has been cut with a hot knife, so it's all stuck together. I got to peel it, break the melted plastic off of it to get the strands apart. Now, even though it's already been melted, the ends there, I'm going to melt them some more. I need to go get a rag. That stuff sticks to my fingers. I like to go ahead and melt these, and then you wet your fingers, you can just pull those down into a sharp point, but I always wind up getting, yeah, let's see here, where's the wind blowing? Like that, and kind of make a point out of it. Like I said, you can do it with your fingers. You wet your fingers and the plastic's not supposed to stick to it, but I always wound up getting burned doing that, so I do it like this. It makes a little bit of a pencil point on there. Now, the trick is to get this tight enough that'll stay on this cleat, but not so tight that it won't, you can't turn it, because it's got to turn You want the line to trail the airplane like this, so it's got to turn that way. But then when I push the airplanes off of the float, then it's got to turn this way. And if you go into a dock or a ramp or something, you want to turn this way too. So. Alright, that should do it. Basically, you just tuck each strand, go over one, under one, over one, under one, all the way along. Now what I like to do is go in here and trim some of these strands off, some of the lines, the individual strands off these strands. To, for the next tucks, for a couple of tucks, just to fair this out, so it doesn't end in a great big wad. Just taper these out a little bit, go up one more with this one, so they don't all end in the same place, and that just smooth that transition out between them. Trim these off. Okay, that's good, nice and tight. It won't come off of there. I'll run this back and determine how long I want it, and then I'll turn back at the end of it and put a splice in the end of it, a turn back on the end of it, so it doesn't unravel. Make it a little neater. Well, anyway, I'll just keep doing that. I've got to do that with this one and that other cleat over there, and then I'll put one back there on the rear strut where I had done before, where the strut attaches to the floats back there, and that'll be for tying up to a dock and stuff, and these will be for handling and whatnot. So anyway, that's all there is to it. Now that one's not too bad, but when you do the turn back on the end, that one gets kind of tough. It's trying to unravel on you while you're doing it. But anyway, we'll do it. Been a while since I've done it. I forget how, but we'll do it. I just got finished with putting those lines on there, and it's starting to rain, so I guess the timing was good on that. I was just finishing up when the first sprinkles started. I got to put the strings back on for the float balls, for the pump out balls, but otherwise I think that pretty much wraps it up there. And the hangar looks pretty empty without that airplane filling it up. We got it outside. I'm going to try launching it here Wednesday morning. It looks like it's going to be a good time. That's the 15th. We'll start flying a couple days after that maybe. The weather has just been lousy since we got the airplane out, or since I got done cleaning the airplane up and painting the floats. It's just been pouring down rain for the last 3 or 4 days. I haven't had much incentive to do much of anything. I did go down to the dock, took the shovel down there and my cork boots and cleaned all the barnacles and mussels and all the growths and stuff off of the ramp that I parked the airplane on, and checked it out. I've got some sheets of UHMW there that I put on the ramp last year to make it easier to slide the plane up on the ramp and mainly off the ramp. Noticed there was a few of the screws that were holding it down were loose. It turned out they were broken, so I took a screw gun down there and put some new screws in them, got those down. So that's ready to go. I still need to take my hoses down there and hook my hoses out for a water line to wash the plane off. I forgot about that. But it's a little bit nicer day to day, but every time you think you want to go out and do something, it just starts pouring down rain again. So I've been puttering around with a few little things here, but I figured I'd go ahead and get the hangar cleaned out and get the floor swept up, and I've got to do some work on the pickup. It's time to change the oil, and the oil filters and the fuel filter and do a lube job and stuff on the pickup. So I can do that. And I got some other things that I want to do to it. I've got to replace the rear bumper. It's getting rusted out. And then I've got a new brake booster to put in it and a new carpet to put in it, but I'll have to tear the pickup apart to do that. Take the seat out, the front seat out. Anyway, that's a little bigger job, but I do need to change the oil. I was going to do it last winter, and then I couldn't get my bypass oil filter. I have a bypass oil filter system on the pickup, and I couldn't get a filter for that. And then I didn't drive the pickup that much over the winter anyway, so it didn't really make any difference, but it's time to change that. But well, anyway, I've got a lot of work to do to swamp out the hanger here and get it ready to do that with. And then I've got some work to do on the Ford Expedition that we used to run the dogs with. Vacuum hoses and stuff on it were bad, and we've been running it like that, but I've got new vacuum hoses for that. Again, it was just too cold all winter to do any of that stuff, and we were busy doing other things, so need to get it done now. Well, we've got a little bit of maintenance to do on a couple of the rigs, and get them in here in the hangar to do that where it's out of the weather. Anyway, I'll get after it. The airplane's all finished up. Like I said, we'll get it launched in a couple days.